Greetings all you maniacs and minds and grinds. Welcome back to another Warframe weapon showcase. Today we're going to be taking a look at the Mutalist Cernos, a weapon that I feel a lot of people pass up, but it has some pretty interesting things about it. It could definitely be better. It's not exactly the greatest bow you'll ever use in the game, but it's definitely interesting. So let's check out the first build, because there are multiple builds I will be showing. So this is my first build. Corrosive, a fuck ton of status with the hammer shot and the dual stats. Also split flights. Now, normally, I think split flights is terrible. It is a garbage mod. But there are a few exceptions. With the Cernos Prime, you basically have an Artemis bow, which is a good meme, but the problem is the proc doesn't last too long. With this, because it produces gas clouds, the proc lasts effectively forever. That's fantastic. Also, I know I don't have heavy caliber. I don't know where I would put heavy caliber because vial acceleration and hammer shot are both very important. So vial acceleration is obviously for the draw speed. Don't worry about the minus 15% damage. It only takes like about that from serration, so it's practically nothing in the grand scheme of things. I can even show you. So, these are the numbers with vial acceleration, But when I take them off and put on, say, speed trigger, did you notice anything change? Not really. That's what minus 15% looks like when it comes to something like this. It's absolutely nothing, so do not worry about it. So this is corrosive. This is corrosive in heat. So how this weapon works is when you fire an arrow, it will the arrows will bed themselves into the ground or whatever and make these gas clouds. Now these gas clouds can crit and proc. They guarantee toxin procs, by the way, or near guarantee toxin procs, at least for the status chance I have. They guarantee heat and corrosive, or any status that you have modded. Any of your modded status, it will proc. So let me spawn in some heavy gunners. So yeah, you could clearly see that the impact damage, the damage of the arrow hitting the enemy, does a decent amount of damage. And the neat thing is, there doesn't seem to be a limit. So just using this thing like a normal bow is not the worst. It definitely does good damage, and you can see that the split flights just keep getting refreshed and refreshed and refreshed. But the issue is, the bow, it's the arrows themselves. The toxin cloud does not do that much damage. But you are proccing all these statuses. Guess what that means? Yeah, condition overload. I'm not exactly sure how long the arrows stay, but it's a decent amount of time. And if you're a Baruch player or just use condition overload all the time with your melee like I do, because condition overload is better than prime pressure point. I've shown this. I'm not showing it again because it's just truth. Then yeah, the amount of status that you can get with this bow is ridiculous. So yeah. Now there are a lot of toxin procs, there are a lot of corrosive procs going on, but you can see the problem. The damage, while it's fine, it's not particularly powerful. The biggest advantage is the AoE that it has. So you can just shoot this thing at a distance and hit all of these enemies. And if you stick an enemy with it, the enemy that will be running around and everything will be spreading this toxin cloud to other enemies, these statuses to other enemies, which is fan-freaking-tastic. And it doesn't appear that the quick shot affects the damage of the toxin cloud at all. But yeah, that's basically how it works with corrosive. corrosive and heat. So now we're going to move on to another build. I will show against other factions. And I will show it with a status monster weapon like Baruch's 4. I will be showing it with Baruch's 4. Not that his 4 needs it, but you can imagine what's going to happen to the enemies. They're not going to live very long. So this is a viral setup. So you would mostly use this against Corpus, because the toxin will bypass their shields and the viral will make the toxin do more damage. However, you could say, well, why don't you just put on Hunter Munitions? Wouldn't that affect it more against Grineer? Well, the answer to that is kinda. This bow is really, really inconsistent with crits. But yeah, that was a crit slash, not from the cloud. Yes, the cloud's crit, but that was a crit slash from the bow itself. So of course it's going to do a lot more damage. But as you can see, it doesn't. If I hit the enemies, it can do decent damage. But the problem with Hunter Munitions and the crit chance is it's not consistent. It is just legitimately not consistent enough. And the amount of damage really isn't that fantastic. You'd think Guaranteed Toxin procs / viral would do loads of damage. Just, pile on the damage and kill things super quickly. But the base damage of this bow is so freaking low when it comes to the Toxin Clouds. So, against Corpus, this kind of build would work fine. A viral radiation build would work fine. But honestly, I would just say build this thing for corrosive or three some elements, because you're guaranteed toxin procs, and just use it as a sort of a stat stick to load enemies up with conditioner and overload. That being said, there are some frames that can take advantage of this bow. One is mag. Any frame that can group enemies up into a cluster. So, with them being in the center of her bubble with their armor reduced like this. Not all of them got in there, but that's okay. And this Toxin Cloud adding damage to the bubble, it only takes a few arrows and they're pretty much screwed. I don't need to do anything. The cloud is so concentrated in there and they're all being toxic and, yeah, melted. Now let's check the explosion damage. Yeah, that killed. That almost killed because damage fall off. So, I'm actually going to just, pelt this area with arrows, and then I'm going to respawn the enemies and then cast my 2 again on them. That is the cool thing about this bow, is that it has lingering damage. So you can literally just load enemies up like that and then just royally screw them over. So yank that bitch into there. Yeah. If they all die, I'm going to quickly respawn more so you can see the explosion damage. Yeah. Mag is no freaking joke. These dudes on their last legs. So this bow works very nicely with mag. It also works really well with Vauban, with Nidus, with basically any frame that can group the enemies up. Anyway. One other frame synergy that I have to go over is with Wisp. Now, before I show other factions, let me briefly go over what Wisp can do for this weapon. Nothing to do with her motes. No, it's all about her 3. I will talk more about her 3 in her proper ins and outs when I get to her. But I also have to spawn enemies that are weak to radiation, because her 3 procs radiation. It does radiation damage. So we're going to pop in some bombards who are weak to radiation. And then something majestic happens. You see this? her 3 just bounces to enemy to enemy to enemy to enemy, and it gets stronger and stronger, and it can do pretty high amounts of damage. Now granted, it's not going to do a fuck ton of damage, but this is extra crowd control and an extra status proc. And against weaker units, it is going to abso-fucking-lutely obliterate. Like, I've seen her 3 do about 100,000 damage like this. And yeah, because the toxin clouds stay around forever, then all of this just keeps going and going. But it is it is a lot more efficient if you have a weapon that can do a fuck ton of damage in an AoE, then use her 3, because that's just how her 3 works. So I am now going to spawn in some Corpus, and I'm going to switch to Var. I'm going to even just put in Tech Xmisses because they have more health. So I'm going to switch to the viral setup, the viral heat setup. You could also just use magnetic, like a magnetic variation of this. You see that it just goes right through their shields. And of course, impacting them with the arrows will just delete their shields. Corpus are pretty freaking weak. On the steel path, they're a lot tougher. But yeah, you can see that, and then I can just use her 3, and then everything should die pretty quickly. But again, this bow is not meant for direct damage. It's mostly meant to hit a lot of enemies, proc a fuck ton of statuses, and all that. I would really love in the new update that we'll be able to upgrade infested weapons. But you can see that how powerful this bow can be, though. And it's mostly thanks to the amount of multi-shot that this thing has. So I'm going to stop with those guys. I'm going to spawn in some corrupted heavy gunners, and I'm going to pull out Baruch. So for Baruch's build, because I'm going to be... Okay. On my Baruch's fist, my normal build for his Desert Wind for Serene Storm, this is the build I use. This is the main build that I use with Viral and Heat. But I also have this Toxin build that is for Corpus. It doesn't matter which one I pick here because the enemies are going to die super quick. Anyway, they are going to be getting hit with Heat, Viral, Toxin, Corrosive, and yeah, that's a lot of statuses. I could go even more, but I'm not going to. And now I'm just going to destroy my restraint really quick. If you have had any doubts that Baruch is a good frame, he is absolutely freaking fantastic. So a faster way of doing this is just to unpause the AI and just stand in front of them with my 1. Because I need my restraint down to use my 4. So I'm going to just kill the enemies. Give me a minute, and then I'm going to just set everything up. I'm going to just spam arrows all over the goddamn place to make sure that everyone gets procced, and then I'm going to just obliterate with my 4. So yeah, they're all getting procced, and then Heat, Corrosive, Toxin, Viral, all at the same time. Plus Impact. Yeah. And now I'm going to do it again. But this time I'm going to probably just go for the kill with like heavy attacks and everything while someone lived. I actually hit that. Nice. So what that's going to entail with me going in for the kill is I'm going to use my 2 to sleep everyone. These are my favorite combo. There's also this combo, which is pretty neat, but I don't use it that much. I mostly use the block standstill combo because it pulls enemies towards. So yeah, that's the Mutalist Cernos, and interesting ways you can use it. I would honestly say this bow, it's okay. It's definitely not a like very weak weapon. It definitely is pretty strong. But the issue is it doesn't have the stats to back it up. If it had a higher critical multiplier and a higher critical chance, i.e. if you had a ribbon for it, it would definitely be a lot stronger. But this bow is not meant for direct damage. This bow is mostly for like loading enemies up with statuses and sticking heavy units, loading them up with statuses, and then just destroying them with melee. That's what this bow is good for. This bow used to have even more utility way back when Blast knocked over enemies, because you could basically stun lock enemies to shit. They would never be able to do anything because they would be on the ground all the time. And it would also completely remove enemy armor. But it no longer does that because of how corrosive has been changed. All that being said, though, definitely give this bow a try. With this build, you're going to need a 4 Forma. I know, sad. But it is definitely... Also, you need a normal Cernos, and then you make the Mutalist Cernos. DE, can you just remove needing weapons for other weapons? It's annoying. Anyway. I really do enjoy this bow, but I don't use it as much because I feel it's a bit unneeded in a way, because Baruch's 4 is going to kill everything anyway. So there really is no point. I mean, his 4 with its augment just, you know, it just freaking, it deletes. His 4 is so freaking powerful. I'm not saying it's overpowered. DE, don't hurt the monk. Leave the monk alone. We love him right now. He's so good for the Steel Path. When in doubt for Steel Path, Baruch is your man. Crowd control, damage reduction on damage reduction on damage reduction, high amount of power. He's perfect. Anyway, that's the Mutalist Cernos. A good bow, but it could definitely use with some upgrades. If we are ever able to upgrade infested weapons, that would be absolutely fantastic. Speaking of infested weapons, I'm going to be returning to an old infested weapon that I covered before, because I have a ribbon for it now, and it's a meme. So there'll be another meme maxed video like what I did with the Buzzlock. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching, and remember, in Trilby, we trust.